Good evening, lovely spirits. It's the wise servant here, Mr. Solace. Now, today I want to do this very interesting video called White People Are the Sons of God, the Giants of Old, the Nephilim, that we read about in the Bible and many other texts that speak of giants. I want to do this video breaking down how white people are the descendants of the giants that we read about so much over time. Now, this is not a racist video. This is just knowledge and truth of the history that I've gathered from all different nationalities. So every civilization of people, they write their history from their perspective and their encounters. Now, I've read through all the different ancient texts in their history. Even the white peoples, Greek, Norse. I read through everyone's ancient history. And it's a deep thing that I realized. White people are the descendants of the giants. Now, I know a lot of people in today's times, they have this question, which is, where did white people come from? Being as though they don't seem to fit in with the order of Earth, meaning the sun burns them up. They don't seem genetically one with the planet. So a lot of people have that question, where did they come from? And on top of that, all people of the earth, every continent, all groups of people were dark-skinned. Then at some point in time in history, you notice how they become lighter. So the Asians were dark. Then at some point in time, they got light, white and straight-haired. Same with the Native Americans of this land. You see images of them now, they are white, straight-haired. Same with the Mexicans. Same with every race of people that you see on this continent. They were dark, now they have light-skinned people a part of their race. And it's a deep thing. This makes people wonder, where did white people come from? And it's a deep thing. According to the Bible, white people are the descendants of the giants, the sons of God, that was written about in the Bible. White people are the descendants of them. Now let me give y'all the proof, because that's all that matters. Now when you're dealing with the Bible, in the beginning you have the creation story, then it goes straight into giants, the sons of God, coming into the daughters of men, and then giants were on the earth. So the book goes straight into giants. You get the creation, you get man, and then you get giants, mingling in with them, messing everything up. Then after that, you get the flood. Now, when you get the flood, you get Noah and his family as the survivors, according to the Hebrew text, because the Hebrew text is telling things from the Hebrew perspective of what they know. So from the Hebrews' history, Noah and his family were saved from the flood. Now, if you go to Mesopotamia, Sumerian history, Ningishida, he was saved from the flood. If you go to Greek mythology, Pyra and Deucalion, I forgot his name, they were saved from the flood. So I say that to show you that different people, I guess different people from different continents, small groups of people from each continent were spared or survived the flood. I said all of that to show you that fact. We tend to think, oh, this was plagiarized of that. Out of the Hebrew history and those people, Noah was saved. Out of the Sumerian lands, you had a guy named Nagishida that was saved. In the Asian lands, you had whoever was saved. In the Indian lands, you had whoever was saved. So this is why they all have flood stories and they all have someone being saved of it. Now, it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. The creation happens, giants and man begin to mingle, then the flood happens. Then you have survivors. Then after the flood, Noah and his people, Nagijah and his people, they all go out into the earth and they begin to multiply. So now they're getting a fresh start and they begin to multiply. Now, I want you to go to Shem's line in the Bible, because this is where it gets interesting when you get to Shem's line. When you get to Shem's descendants, you have a guy named Eber. And Eber has 2 sons. One named Peleg. And Peleg comes from the Israel line, meaning they tell you Peleg's descendants, and it goes straight down into Jacob. Now, Eber had 2 sons, Peleg, which is Israel's line, and then his other son's name was Jotan. Now, this is where it's deep, because you have to know of the history, because the Bible doesn't deal with the Jotan. It deals with Peleg's line, which is Israel, but it doesn't deal with Jotan's. It just tells you Jotan's sons, and then it's over with. And it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. If you go into old Norse writings of their creation story, you have Jotunheim. And Jotunheim is the land of the giants. And the giants would go into Midgard, which is Earth, and cause the humans of Earth despair and all types of things. Now, the giants from Jotunheim, they were called Jotuns. This is what they called themselves, Jotuns. Now, Eber had 2 sons, Peleg and Jotan. So you have to grasp. This is why they don't go into Jotan. Because Eber had 2 sons, Peleg and Jotan. Now, Peleg was Israel line, and the Bible is breaking down Israel's history. So it goes into Peleg's genealogy and his descendancy. Now, when it gets to Jotan, it doesn't. And the reason why is because Eber had Jotan with some other woman. So Eber probably was with Peleg's mother. And that's who he was with and raised up Peleg. But Jotan probably stayed with his mother. Now, you can use Genesis chapter 10, verse 25 as a reference for everything I just said about Peleg and Jotan. So you can understand, Jotan lived with his mother, because in the Bible it says in this time the lands were divided. So this is why they don't go into Jotan so deeply, because Jotan's mother was from the giants, or a descendant of the giants. So it's a deep thing, and he probably lived with them, and this is why he had that name, Jotan. Not to say that the giants from Jotunheim all descended from him, but to say he comes from those people. That's why he was given that name. This is why the Hebrew Bible didn't go so much on Jotan. Now, how do you know Jotan is white? White giant? You go to white people history. Go to Scandinavian history, which is Norse writings. And you have Jotunheim and the Jotun giants that came to Earth. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. You have to know more than just one text to get a full understanding of things. And it's a deep thing. This is where the giants begin to pop back up again after the flood, when you get to Eber and his 2 sons. Because you basically just have, after the flood, you have everybody mixing and mingling back in again. And through that, you get what you get. So it's a deep thing. I'm trying to figure out a way to break it down with yellow grass, but basically, the whole Bible is about the whole first part of the Bible, not the New Testament, the Old Testament. The whole Old Testament is about the Israelites being the special people because they are the ones who killed the giants or rid the earth of the giants, supposedly. Now, it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. When you read in the Bible, you have Abraham. Now, Abraham, he basically, if you go to Genesis chapter 14, verse 1 through 11, this breaks down where the giants were warring amongst each other, and Lot set up his tent by Sodom and Gomorrah city. This is the giants and them, and they begin to war against one another, and Lot gets caught up in that when they raid through the city that he's next to, and this is when Abraham has his first interactions with the giants, and he slays them, and he saves his cousin Lot, or his nephew Lot. Then you get to Jacob, which is Israel. This is Genesis chapter 32, verse 24 through 30. This is where Jacob was wrestling with the man, and he got beat up and got his hip knocked out his socket. And it's deep because when he's wrestling with the guy, and the guy's like, let me go, and Jacob's like, no, I'm going to keep fighting, or you got to bless me. So the guy blessed him and named him Israel, and told him, you prevailed against God and man. Basically telling him, I'm half man, half God. Now, this is in the times where they believed in all that demigod stuff, and it's a reason for that. But he was basically telling Jacob, you just wrestled with a giant, or the descendant of one, and you didn't die. So this is why he gave him the name Israel. That's why that moment was so significant. If you read it in the Bible, it's like, okay, he wrestled with a guy, then he gave him the name. He kept referring to the guy as God, even though it said it was a man, and you get lost. And it's simple. He was the descendants of the giants, and he was wrestling with them, and he didn't get killed. He actually made it through. Then you have Moses. If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 10 through 12, they discuss Og, the giant Og, and how Moses and them slayed him and took over his cities, like 60 of them. Then if you go to Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 46 through 48, it lets you know when Moses left Egypt with the Israelites, he basically was in giant land. And the giant Og was the first he encountered, and they slayed them and took over their cities, and that's where they was dwelling and mingling when they first left Egypt. So you can go to Deuteronomy 4, you can go to Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 46 through 48, and you'll see exactly what I'm saying. It says exactly what I just said. When Moses left Egypt, they killed the giants and took over their land. So the whole Bible is about the Israelites slaying or ridding the world of giants. And this is what that whole book is about. And it's explaining how white people came into the mix. Because I know a lot of y'all are like, how do we know the giants have anything to do with white people? Because you still didn't break that part down. And it's deep. Because the giants in every text, no matter which one you get, they're always described as white, red-haired, or blonde-haired. Even in American lands where they was digging in that cave and they found those 30 bodies of red-haired skeletons that was like 8 feet tall. So it's a deep thing y'all gotta grasp. All history of the giants, they're always described as white. Now, what makes it even deeper, if you go to white people's history, like Greek, Scandinavian, those Germanic countries, all them white European countries, and you go to their history, and their creation stories, etc., the things we call myth, they descend from white giant gods. So you have to grasp. If you're dealing with Greek, you got the Titans and the Olympians, and these is white giant gods. And this is their history of what they descend from, and how these beings mixed in with regular man. See, in Greek writings, the Titans and the Olympians, they was mingling with regular women. If you go to Norse writings, the Jotunheim, or those from Jotunheim, the Jotuns, the giants, they were going to Midgard, mingling with women. So it's a deep thing when you deal with white people history. They own history say that they descend from the giants. Black people history don't say that. African history don't say they descend from no giants. It's so deep, nobody history speaks of gods except for white people history. You don't hear gods in nobody history until white people mingle with their culture. Prior to that, you don't hear that word. They translate other people's texts, and they use God as a translation of words they don't know. But if you go to any culture's history, they have no words, God, or things like this. They gave reference and they gave praise to all different things in the life for its special qualities. So it's a deep thing. You didn't get that dominion thing till you got white people in the play. Now I'm going to try to break it down in a full so y'all can get a full spectrum of what fully happened. Because I read all the different texts. And just from gathering all the different texts, the white history with the Israel's history, with the Africans' history, the Sumer's history, and I read them all, and I'm going to just give y'all a quick breakdown. Basically, the giants came from Antarctica. After the flood, according to all the text. Now, I don't know where they came. No texts really say where they came from, except for white people's history, which is Greek and Norse. In Greek and Norse, it says the giants came from some other place. But wherever they came from, where they got here, they dwelled in Antarctica. Now, this is before the flood. The giants dwelled in Antarctica. They were white, albino white, and they were tall giants. They dwelled in Antarctica before the flood. I'm starting to think everybody dwelled in that area of Antarctica before the flood. And then after the flood, people began to move out into this part of Earth. Because there's mad parts of Earth that's not occupied. People tend to dwell where the city is and the action is. So I think Antarctica was the place. Besides, Antarctica is bigger than all the places of Earth we dwell in combined. So I think everybody dwelt there. The giants were in Antarctica. Then the flood happened and Antarctica froze over, being as though it don't get hot. It froze over. Now, you know, Antarctica would be a good place for white-skinned giants. The sun will burn them up in Africa. So they dwelt there. It gets flooded over. Then they come out of Antarctica. And they begin to dwell in with the rest of the population after the flood. After they start repopulating and men begin to repopulate again, they mingling in with them. Then, you know, they build in cities. So wherever you see in the Bible, they speak of cities being built and all this stuff like that. This is the giants of old coming back doing their old tricks again, teaching men how to fashion metal and all these different things that create systems in cities. And they teach them these things so they can slave them out and have them build it up for them again and run their systems where the giants rule and the people slave out. Kind of how it is now, where we work and we really don't know who runs this place. Well, like that. So they would just do that and pretty much take over all the places they could take over and build cities. So, you know, after a time, it began to get crowded and tight. And then, you know, when people would leave out of their little village, now they in giants territory. And this is how you get the wars and things like that. So it's like you get Adam, Eve. Then they have Cain, Abel, Seth. And then it goes all the way down into Israelites. And how you get the giants, how they mingled in with men, and then sometimes you would get more giants, sometimes you would just get regular sized men. But white, this is how they distinguish the descendants of the giants. So when you hear them running into all them cities in the Bible and they killing the women and the children and everybody, it's not always a giant city, but they may be the descendants of the giants, meaning they were white. So this is how they knew in the past, oh, he a descendant of the giants, because he's white. Nobody was white before the giants came. They was the only people white. Then they're mingling with people. Sometimes you'll get a man-sized person, but white, blonde hair, maybe black hair, whatever, but you'll get them white. So this is how you get the different whites that we have. Some blue hair, some brown hair, some red hair, some blonde hair. This is how you get that. From the mingling with the giants. They were white, everybody else was dark skinned. Regular man was dark skinned, had pigment and melanin and things like this. And the giants didn't have that because they not from this realm. According to all the texts, they not from this realm. So they mingle in. And then you have white people now over time. And we like, where did white people come from? They came from that, from the giants mingling in. And then you had the Israelites killing them from the moment they left. From the moment you get to Abraham all the way down to David and Goliath through the whole Bible. They killing them and taking over their cities, basically trying to get them out of the earth because they don't belong here. And that's what made the Israelites a special people. And white people that you see today are just the end results of the giants being here and mingling in with man. So this is how you got them. They like half giants, half genetics of man. And it's a deep thing. It's like Hitler. It's like Hitler must have had his German scientists and them reading on these things, and they realized, oh, all white people are the descendants of the giants. And this is when he went to Antarctica. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. And then he was having talks of looking for white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed people because he knew they were the closest genetically to the giants, meaning they had the closest amount of genetic makeup to the giants, because the giants is albinos. White skin, platinum blonde hair, probably red eyes. So the closest thing you get to them, the original, is the white skin, blue hair. White skin, blue eyes, blonde hair. Blonde, when you see a white person with blonde hair, natural blonde hair, where the eyebrows is blonde and they're a real blonde, you have to grasp they're an albino. What color is albino's hair when they're black? Yellow, blonde. So you have to grasp, when you see blonde, this is albino. No one has blonde hair except for albinos. You probably think, oh, white people got blonde hair. You see a white person with blonde hair, they're an albino. You see a black person that's an albino, I guarantee you their hair looks yellow or blonde. White people just don't look albino-ish because they're already white. So you have to grasp, a white person with black hair, they have more man genes, not more man genes than giant genes, but just they have more man genes than the blonde-haired one. This is why they have more pigment, and their hair may be black, their eyes may be black. The blonde has more of the giant DNA. This is why their hair is blonde and they albino-ish. And the true giants would have been platinum-haired and like completely white, like chalk. And it's a deep thing. This is how they separated them, and this is why Hitler went on that little crazy spree he went on. And it's a deep thing people got to grasp. The knowledge is in all the different texts. So if y'all like reading these books so much, y'all have to read all the different texts, because it's not about God and devil and all of that. That is a religion thing that has been made to keep hold of the population. But if you just read it for the history, because all these different texts are telling a different group of people's history and whoever they encountered. So when you read an ancient Kemetic text, you're reading their history and who they encountered. When you're reading Israel's or the Bible or the Torah, you're reading Israelite history and who they encountered. When you're reading the Mahabharata, you're reading Indian history and who they encountered in the... So it's not about saying, oh, this history plagiarized this history and so on and so forth. It's not about that. It's about when they interacted and encountered one another. That's why all the stories are so similar, because they're encountering one another. And when the whites, which is the descendants of the giants, encounter any civilization, they do the same thing that the giants in the Bible did when they came unto the daughters of men. They turn wherever they go into a civilization where you have buildings and a system and people work, and so you have to grasp. And this is the same thing giants of old did. They taught women and men how to fashion metal and build, and the art of dyeing the eyelids, and how to pretty up, and prostitution. And they taught all the things that you see happening in cities. They taught men this, and polluted the life, messed up the whole life. And they did this in the ancient past so they can use men as slaves to build up their cities. You got to teach people how to do what you want them to do for you. So they teach them this. Men look at them as gods, and then they do what they want. And it's less like if you look now. When white people encounter any nationality of people, they term them civilized. So when the Native Americans was here, they lived how they lived. White people came here 500 years later. It's like the fallen angels came here. You got buildings and cities and temples and altars. Buildings ain't nothing but altars. Stones stacked on top of each other as high as you can get it. So you see the remnants of the same behavior as was described with the giants. The same behavior the giants had is the same behavior white people still have today. And this is why this information is suppressed, because if people knew the truth, they would just start killing white people. Not on a racist trip, but just on a trip of, damn, they don't even belong in this realm. They're here because their ancestors were giants that came here and pretty much slaved niggas out. They brought the whole slavery system that you see us living, where we working to live in life. They brought that. And the white people are the descendants of the after effects of that.